Hey guys, today's story is going to be about an egotistical DM and their wife. I'm making a throwaway because a friend of mine thought that this story really belonged here, but I wouldn't really want these people to come after me if they happened to find it. So a little bit of backstory. I joined a play-by-post campaign through Discord that was essentially run as D&D 5e, but was a world that the DM is trying to turn into her own role-playing game and system as time goes on. She has a website set up for it, and multitudes of articles on homebrew gods, races, location, groups, maps, etc. All in all, it's a massive amount of passion poured into this unique project. And you can really tell that this is something that the DM and her wife are very proud of, and in love with. They regularly would advertise their campaigns through a couple of different forums, opening up an application process via Discord along with some time for their current players to get to know the newbies and decide who would best fit in with the group. Definitely very thought out and careful approach to try and ensure a safe place for people to have fun and get along well. And the other players were always great and very fun to play with. I had a great time with all of them. They were all very sweet and funny. So much so, in fact, that it was always a surprise when people would get kicked out of the group for seemingly no reason. At first you would think, oh, maybe they actually were mean people. Okay, oh well. As time went on though, so many people got kicked out, it was a regular thing for the DM and her wife to look for applicants in their games. I wasn't an original player to their games, and although I definitely liked all the other players, I felt a little apprehensive talking about my feelings regarding the matter when it came to the players who were there before me. I wasn't sure if they felt the same way I did, or if they had some weird allegiance to the DM and her wife that would turn on me if I happened to ask about the common kicks. As time went on, it became very clear that the DM and her wife were the ones creating a toxic environment, not the players. They would get more and more upset every time they kicked people, to the point that it was impossible for them to recognize their way of handling issues, and lack of compromise in the game environment was making it hard for people to have fun. To play in their games, you had to first acknowledge the fact that the DM's wife's character would always be a plot device, not just a character. If you were not receptive to her character, or the very self-indulgent roleplay she insisted on, you were out. If your character was the least bit more dominant than hers was, you were out. If there was any bit of in-character headbutting, she'd bring it into out-of-character argument, and you were out. I've seen her warn players out of character for things that they did in character that were misunderstood or misconstrued. If anyone dared to try to stand up for themselves or explain why their character would behave the way they did, they were out. One very self-indulgent scene we participated in was a ceremony in which we all pledged loyalty to the DM's wife's werewolf character, despite knowing that her character had in the past killed many NPCs, and even a player character when they got kicked out of the group. We were to discover that she was a werewolf, then basically said that we would always protect her and stay by her side. This included the ranger in the group, whose character suffered a traumatic werewolf attack in the past, and did not have any reason to trust them going forwards. Despite the scene being very long, personalized to her entertainment only, and full of cringe, we all kind of just went with it from fear of retribution. There was one player that I still feel bad for. She was brought into this group a little bit later in the game around level 7 and was playing a shifter monk. Because she had no connection to any of our past adventures, I could tell it was pretty hard for her to roleplay along with the group at first. I'd spent a few months in the game roleplaying, shopping, and traveling, and getting us to our next task, while also discussing our previous one. When we finally got into our first combat session, which was literally months after she joined, we killed a few cultists that summoned 2 big alligator vine creatures, which I'm 99% certain that they are the Faemire crocodiles pulled straight from Critical Role. One of the bosses literally swallowed the monk immediately. We all freaked out in out-of-character chat, and we tried to think of ways to get her out, guessing at how many rounds it would take to kill her. and trying to think of ways of how to heal her while still in the stomach. The DM's wife went into discipline mode, telling us to stop metagaming or the DM will metagame back, telling us how dare we assume that we knew how getting swallowed would work, etc., etc. We tried to fireball the things, and we tried to kill them in time, but, quite literally the round before we killed it, the monk had taken too much bludgeoning damage and stomach acid damage, and died before she even had a chance to even roll for a death save. Since the group wasn't even aware that her character was a shifter, she had shifted inside the creature, since she thought it would be at least a cool reveal for them when they were removed from the body, asking if the DM could override the rule that says you shift back to normal when knocked out. The DM said no, and I just couldn't believe it. The DM just straight up and killed a character in their first encounter, claiming there was nothing she could do to stop it and claiming that she felt bad about it. And then to top it all off, refused to even let her have a satisfying roleplay shifter reveal at the very end. The player was somewhat absent from the game for about a week. I wanted to message her and see how bad she felt, but I was afraid to do so. As if somehow my objection to being treated like that would somehow make its way back to the DM and subsequently get me kicked out. I don't know. I feel like I can't sum up my issues with the DM and her wife enough here to make others fully understand what kind of awkward cringe happened on the daily. I don't normally complain about my experience in campaigns, and I also know character death happens. And I know that all DMs treat something like that differently, and most of the time I'm not bothered. I'm in about 4 other campaigns at the current time, and I don't feel this way in any of the other ones. I think it's a combination of the DM and her wife being unreasonable and lacking self-awareness, plus the fact that they use their sessions as personal therapy and flip out if things don't go exactly as planned. They talk about how they love Critical Role so much, and how they want to emulate that strong, intimate connection in their own games, but they lack the ability to communicate or have a decent two-way conversation with anyone, deciding it's just faster, and avoids more drama if they just kick people out right away. I found my way out from that campaign, and left with no intention to return. I stayed in contact with nobody, and from what I hear now, others saw the opportunity to leave as well. And it doesn't look like they're currently running that game right now. I have friends who have never played with them, who reassured me constantly that nothing they ever did was logical or fun, and that I should have left a long time ago. And they're the ones that actually directed me to the subreddit. I just don't understand how you can kick so many people out of your own campaigns for so long, and never once realize the common denominator. This really turned into a long vent, huh? If there's one thing I learned from it, it's that RPGs are a combination of the DM's and the other player's enjoyment, not some self-indulgent power trip for the DM. I just feel so frustrated at seeing so many people trying to talk sense into the DM and her wife, and that I know that if I tried to do the same thing, it would have been useless. But in any case, guys, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you have a story that you'd like me to narrate, let me know. And as always, thanks for watching, and have a good one.